I'm Garrett, 30 years old, a software developer from Boston who finally bought my first house. After years of cramped apartments, I was excited to host Christmas dinner and show my family my achievement. I spent weeks preparing only to receive a text from my mom. Weather's too dangerous to drive. Everyone's staying home, the forecast showed just light snow. My disappointment was immense, but nothing compared to what I'd feel later when I saw their cars parked outside my sister's house. Hey everyone, before I continue this heartbreaking story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt excluded by the people who should care about you most. Trust me, what happened next will shock you. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, I always felt like I was living in Samantha's shadow. My younger sister was the golden child, the one whose academic achievements, sports trophies, and social accomplishments were celebrated with enthusiasm, while mine were acknowledged with mere nods. Our family photo albums were filled with Samantha's ballet recitals, soccer championships, and honor roll certificates. Finding a photo where I was the main focus required detective work. I wasn't a troublemaker or underachiever by any means. I maintained good grades, participated in chess club and computer science competitions, and even landed a scholarship to a respectable state university. But somehow my achievements never seemed to measure up in my parents' eyes. When I made honor roll, my mother Diana would say, "That's nice, Garrett," but when Samantha brought home similar grades, it was cause for celebration dinner at our favorite restaurant. My father Robert wasn't as obvious about the favoritism, but he followed my mother's lead in most family matters. He was a passive man who valued peace above fairness, so he rarely intervened when I was sidelined. I remember once when I won a regional coding competition in high school, and he said, "Good job, son," then immediately asked Samantha about her upcoming dance recital, spending the next hour helping her practice. The only person who seemed to truly see me was my grandmother Eleanor. Mom's mother had a special softness for me, perhaps, because she recognized the dynamics at play. She'd slip me encouraging notes, attend my smaller events when my parents were too busy, usually with Samantha's activities, and always made me feel valued. "You're going to surprise them all someday, Garrett," she'd whisper to me when no one was listening. This year had finally brought that surprise. After years of hard work at a software company, I'd received a substantial promotion to senior developer with a significant salary increase. The promotion allowed me to finally afford a modest but charming 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood, the first major property owned by anyone in my generation of the family. I was proud of this accomplishment and eager to share it with my family, especially since my sister Samantha was still renting with her husband Derek. My girlfriend Hazel had been with me for 2 years and understood my complicated relationship with my family. She was the one who encouraged me to host Christmas dinner. "This is your chance to show them what you've accomplished," she said one evening, as we sat in my partially furnished living room. "Your house is beautiful, and you deserve to celebrate it." Hazel was always my biggest supporter. With her warm brown eyes and genuine smile, she had a way of making me feel worthy of celebration. We'd met at a tech conference where she was representing her graphic design firm, and her confidence and kindness had drawn me in immediately. Unlike my family, she never compared me to others or made me feel like I was falling short. With her encouragement, I decided to invite my family for Christmas dinner. I spent 3 weeks planning the perfect menu, researching recipes, and creating a shopping list that would impress even my mother, who prided herself on her cooking. I wanted everything to be perfect. The turkey, the sides, the desserts. I even planned to make my grandmother's famous apple pie from her handwritten recipe she'd given me years ago. I spent nearly $1,000 on decorations, transforming my living room with a magnificent 7-foot Christmas tree adorned with twinkling lights and ornaments in classic red and gold. I hung garlands along the staircase and placed festive candles throughout the house. The dining room table was extended to its full length and set with new dishes and silverware I'd purchased specifically for the occasion. The gifts were another major investment. I'd carefully selected something meaningful for each family member. A vintage brooch for my grandmother that matched one she'd lost years ago, a leather-bound first edition of my father's favorite novel, a high-end pasta maker for my mother, who had mentioned wanting one, and even an expensive sound system for Samantha and Derek's apartment. I wanted my generosity to speak where my words often couldn't penetrate. I took 3 days off work before Christmas to prepare cleaning every corner of the house and even repainting the guest bathroom to make sure everything was perfect. Hazel came over each evening to help bringing additional decorations and helping me practice the more complicated recipes. When I initially extended the invitation during our family's Thanksgiving gathering at Samantha's apartment, the response was lukewarm at best. "Oh, I don't know, Garrett," my mother said with a slight frown. "We usually do Christmas at home or at Samantha's. They have that lovely open-concept kitchen and dining area. But Mom, I have a whole house now." I reminded her, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. "There's plenty of space, and I really want to show you all what I've done with the place." "We'll see," she replied, exchanging glances with my father. "The holidays are so busy, and you know your father doesn't like to drive too far in winter." My house was actually closer to my parents than Samantha's was, but I didn't point this out. Over the next few weeks, I followed up with individual calls to each family member. My Aunt Deborah, my mother's sister, was hesitant, but eventually agreed. "I suppose we could try something different this year," she said, though I could hear the reluctance in her voice. Her husband Thomas and their kids, my cousins Brandon and Ashley, followed her lead with similarly hesitant acceptances. My grandmother was the only one who seemed genuinely excited. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart," she assured me. "I'll even come early to help you prepare." A week before Christmas, after several more conversations and gentle reminders, everyone finally confirmed they would come. My mother attempted one last redirection. "Are you sure you want to take this on? Garrett, hosting is a lot of work. Samantha has already mentioned she'd be happy to do it again." "I'm sure, Mom," I said firmly. "I've been planning for weeks. Everything's under control." The day before Christmas, I made my final grocery run, picking up last-minute items and fresh ingredients. The weather forecast mentioned light snow for Christmas Day. Nothing unusual for Massachusetts in December, just 2 to 3 inches predicted. I called my grandmother to confirm she'd still be coming early to help. "Of course, dear," she said warmly. "I'm looking forward to seeing your new home. I'm so proud of you." Just before bed, I received a text from my cousin Brandon. "Looking forward to tomorrow, man. Good luck with the hosting gig." It was a small gesture, but it made me feel like at least some of my family was giving me a chance. As I went to sleep that night in my new house, surrounded by decorations and preparations, I allowed myself to feel hopeful that tomorrow might be the day my family finally saw me as an equal to my sister, as someone worthy of their pride and attention. Christmas morning arrived with a gentle snowfall. I woke up at 5 a.m., too excited to sleep any longer. The world outside my window was being dusted with delicate white flakes that drifted lazily from a pearl gray sky. According to the weather app on my phone, we'd received less than an inch overnight, with another inch or two expected throughout the day. Nothing concerning for New Englanders who dealt with serious snow every winter. I started my day with a strong cup of coffee and immediately began preparations. The 20-pound turkey needed to go in the oven by 8 if we were going to eat at 3 as planned. I prepared the stuffing using my grandmother's recipe, chopped vegetables for the sides, and began setting up the appetizer platters. The house smelled amazing, a mixture of roasting turkey cinnamon from the apple pie and the pine scent from the Christmas tree. At 7:30, Hazel arrived carrying additional supplies: a beautiful flower arrangement for the table centerpiece and some last-minute ingredients she'd picked up. "It's looking amazing in here," she said, giving me a quick kiss. "Your family is going to be blown away." "I hope so," I replied, trying to suppress the nervous energy that had been building all morning. "The turkey's almost ready for the oven, and I've got the sides prepped." Hazel hung her coat by the door, brushing off a few snowflakes. "The snow is so light, it's actually pretty perfect for Christmas. Enough to look festive, but not enough to cause any problems." I nodded in agreement as I checked the temperature of the oven. Outside, the snowfall continued gently, creating a picturesque holiday scene without any of the hazards of a real snowstorm. No wind, no ice, just soft, fluffy snow that barely accumulated on the already salted roads. By 10 o'clock, the turkey was roasting, filling the house with a mouth-watering aroma. The table was set, decorations were perfect, and Christmas music played softly through the house. Hazel and I were in the kitchen preparing cranberry sauce when my phone chimed with a text message. It was a group text from my mother to the entire family. Due to dangerous weather conditions, we think it's best to cancel gathering at Garrett's Roads. Too hazardous to drive. Everyone's staying home, stay safe, and Merry Christmas to all. I stared at the phone in disbelief, then immediately walked to the front window. The snow was still falling lightly, with barely 2 inches accumulated on the ground. The street had already been plowed and salted, and I could see neighbors easily driving and even walking around without any difficulty. "What's wrong?" Hazel asked, noticing my expression. I handed her my phone wordlessly. As she read the message, her brow furrowed. "Dangerous weather conditions," she repeated incredulously. "It's barely snowing." Before I could respond, replies started coming in from family members. My father agreed. Better safe than sorry. My Aunt Deborah definitely too risky to drive. Thanks for understanding, Garrett. My sister Samantha safety first, sorry Garrett. My cousin Ashley. Such a bummer. But yeah, not worth risking an accident. I felt my stomach drop as I read each message. The coordination of their responses seemed too quick, too uniform. My grandmother didn't respond to the group text, which I found strange. "This makes no sense," I said to Hazel, my voice tight with confusion and the beginning stirrings of hurt. "It's barely snowing. The roads are fine." I typed a response. "The snow is very light here. Roads are clear and salted. I'd be happy to pick anyone up who doesn't want to drive." My mother replied almost immediately. No. Everyone's already decided to stay home for safety. Maybe we can do something after the holidays." I called my grandmother hoping she might still come, but there was no answer. I tried my parents next, but the call went straight to voicemail. A sinking feeling was growing in my chest as I realized what might be happening. "They don't want to come," I said quietly to Hazel. "It's not about the weather at all." Hazel put her arm around me. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe they're genuinely concerned about the weather. Some people are very cautious about driving in any snow." I appreciated her attempt to make me feel better, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. My family had driven through much worse weather for Samantha's events. Last year, they'd all made it to her house during an actual blizzard, with 8 inches of snow and high winds. Still, I tried to salvage the day. "Well, I guess it's just us then. We can still enjoy the dinner." Hazel smiled sympathetically. "Absolutely. And we'll have amazing leftovers for days." We continued with our preparations, scaling back where we could. The massive turkey would now feed just the two of us for what seemed like weeks, but I was determined not to let the cancellation completely ruin the holiday. Around noon, my phone rang. It was my best friend, Jason. "Hey man, Merry Christmas," he said when I answered. "Merry Christmas," I replied, trying to sound more cheerful than I felt. "How's your day going?" Good. Listen, I'm driving back from my girlfriend's parents' place, and I just passed your sister's house. There are a bunch of cars parked outside. Looks like your family's cars from what I could tell." My heart felt like it stopped for a moment. "Are you sure?" "Pretty sure, man. I recognized your dad's SUV and your aunt's minivan. I didn't want to say anything, but I thought you should know." I thanked him for telling me, and hung up, my mind racing. Could they really have done this? Cancelled on me, with a transparent lie about weather only to gather at Samantha's instead. "What is it?" Hazel asked, seeing my expression. I told her what Jason had said, and her face shifted from concern to anger on my behalf. "That's terrible if it's true," she said. "But let's verify before jumping to conclusions. Let's check the traffic cameras online. They'll show if the roads are actually bad." We pulled up the Massachusetts Department of Transportation website and checked the traffic cameras for the routes between my parents' house and both my house and Samantha's quote. All showed clear, wet roads, with minimal snow accumulation. Cars were moving at normal speeds, with no signs of hazardous conditions. "I need to see for myself," I said, grabbing my coat. "I'm going to drive by Samantha's—" Hazel looked concerned. "Are you sure that's a good idea? It might just make you feel worse." "I need to know the truth," I insisted. "I've spent my whole life accepting their excuses and believing their justifications. I need to see this with my own eyes." Hazel nodded, understanding in her eyes. I'll come with you. We got into my car and drove toward Samantha's house, which was about 20 minutes away. The roads were exactly as the traffic cameras had shown, wet but clear with light snow that wasn't sticking to the treated surfaces. Other cars moved at normal speeds, and there were even people out walking dogs and children playing in yards. The supposed dangerous weather conditions were nothing more than a picturesque light snowfall that added to the Christmas atmosphere rather than detracting from it. As we drove, my anxiety mounted. Part of me hoped Jason had been mistaken, that there was some other explanation for the cars he'd seen. Maybe they belonged to neighbors or friends. Maybe my family really was concerned about the weather, however irrational that concern might seem to me. "Are you okay?" Hazel asked, placing her hand on my knee as I drove. "Not really," I admitted. If they're all there after canceling on me because of dangerous weather, I couldn't finish the sentence. The implication was too painful. "Maybe we should turn back," Hazel suggested gently. "Finding out might hurt more than not knowing." I shook my head. I need to see this. I've spent my whole life making excuses for how they treat me, telling myself I'm imagining things or being too sensitive. I need to know if I've been right all along. As we approached Samantha's neighborhood, my heart pounded harder. We turned onto her street and I slowed the car to a crawl. From a distance, I could see multiple vehicles parked in and around her driveway. I pulled over about 6 houses away, far enough that we wouldn't be immediately noticed, but close enough to confirm what I was seeing. There they were. My parents' black SUV, my aunt and uncle's silver minivan, my grandmother's old blue sedan, that my father usually drove her in, and my cousin's cars. All parked either in the driveway or directly in front of Samantha's house. Christmas music drifted faintly through the air, and through the large front window, I could see colorful lights and moving figures inside. "They're all there," I whispered, my voice catching. "Every single one of them." Hazel squeezed my hand. "I'm so sorry, Garrett." I sat frozen in the driver's seat, staring at the house. Through the large bay window, I caught glimpses of my family moving around inside. I could make out my father's tall figure standing near the fireplace, a drink in his hand. My mother and aunt appeared to be arranging something on the dining table. And there was my grandmother, the person I trusted most, seated in an armchair with a Christmas gift in her lap. The betrayal cut deep, not just from my parents or sister whom I'd grown to expect disappointment from, but from my grandmother, from all of them. The coordinated lie, the pretense of concern about weather, that clearly posed no threat, the group decision to exclude me while pretending it was about safety. "I can't believe they would do this," I said, my voice barely audible. Just then, my phone chimed with a notification. I pulled it out and saw it was an Instagram alert. My cousin Ashley had tagged several family members in a post. With a sense of dread, I opened the app. There it was, a photo of my entire family gathered around Samantha's dining table, which was laden with food. Everyone was smiling, raising glasses in a toast. The caption read, "Perfect holiday with the perfect family. So blessed to be together. Number Merry Christmas, number family time." The post had been made just 30 minutes ago. I scrolled to the comments and saw more salt in the wound. My mother had commented, "So glad we could all be together safely." My aunt, "Nothing better than family Christmas traditions." My sister Samantha, "So happy to host everyone in our home again this year." Even my grandmother had liked the post. I felt physically ill, a wave of nausea washing over me as the reality of the situation fully hit. My hands began to shake, and I handed the phone to Hazel, unable to look at it anymore. "Oh my God," she said, her voice filled with shock and outrage as she scrolled through the comments. "This is unbelievable. They're not even trying to hide it." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Hurt so deep, it was physical anger building beneath the surface, and oddly, a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a one-time slight. This was a deliberate, coordinated decision to exclude me, while maintaining the pretense that it wasn't personal. It was confirmation of what I'd felt for years, but had been gaslighted into doubting, that I was an outsider in my own family. "Let's go home," I said quietly. "I've seen enough." Hazel looked at me with concern. "Are you sure you don't want to confront them now?" I shook my head. "Not like this. Not when I'm this hurt. I need to process this first." We drove home in silence. the festive Christmas decorations in neighborhood windows now seeming to mock my pain. Tears streamed down my face, but I made no sound. Hazel kept her hand on mine, offering silent support that meant more to me than she could know. In that car ride, something shifted inside me. The pain was immense, but alongside it grew a resolve I hadn't felt before. This moment of absolute clarity, seeing the truth of my family's treatment of me without any possibility of misinterpretation or excuse, was painful but necessary. It was the irrefutable evidence I'd needed to stop doubting my own experiences and perceptions. As we pulled back into my driveway, I looked at my beautifully decorated house, the lights twinkling in, welcome the table set for guests who had never intended to come. In that moment, I knew that whatever happened next, I wouldn't go back to accepting scraps of attention and affection from people who couldn't even be honest with me. Back inside my house, the contrast between the warm, inviting space I'd created and the cold reality of my family's betrayal was stark. The turkey still roasted in the oven, filling the air with a tantalizing aroma that now seemed to mock my efforts. The meticulously set table with its fine china and carefully folded napkins waited for guests who had chosen to be elsewhere. "Do you want me to stay?" Hazel asked gently as we hung our coats. I considered her offer, appreciating her willingness to share this painful moment with me. But I recognized a need to be alone with my thoughts, to process this betrayal without feeling obligated to manage someone else's reaction to my pain. "I think I need some space tonight," I said. "But thank you for being here today, for seeing this with me." Hazel nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Call me if you change your mind anytime. And Garrett, what they did says everything about them and nothing about you." After she left, I moved through the house like a ghost, turning off the oven, covering the prepared food, and placing it in the refrigerator. I methodically turned off the Christmas lights, extinguished the candles, and sat in the growing darkness of my living room. The only illumination came from the streetlights outside, casting long shadows across the floor as evening descended. In the silence, memories surfaced unbidden. My 10th birthday, when my parents had scheduled a dental appointment during my small party, leaving early with Samantha in tow. My high school graduation, where they'd spent the ceremony talking about Samantha's upcoming college visits rather than my accomplishment. The countless family dinners where my updates were received with polite nods before someone quickly changed the subject to Samantha's latest achievement. I remembered my 16th birthday, which had received a small family acknowledgement, while Samantha's sweet 16 the following year had been a lavish affair with extended family, invited from 3 states away. I recalled how my mother had spent weeks planning it, ordering custom decorations and catering, while my celebration had been a rushed dinner at a chain restaurant. There were the family vacations that always seemed to coincide with Samantha's school breaks, but rarely with mine. The times my parents attended every one of Samantha's soccer games, but claimed to be too busy to come to my chess tournaments. The Christmas mornings where Samantha's pile of gifts towered over mine, not just in childhood, but well into our adult years. More recent memories surfaced too. When I'd graduated from college with honors in computer science, my parents had attended but spent most of the celebration dinner talking about Samantha's new job. When I'd gotten my first promotion, my mother had said, "That's nice, dear," before immediately changing the subject to Samantha's new apartment. And when I'd announced I was buying a house, my father had asked if I was sure I could afford it while they'd helped Samantha with her wedding the year before without question. My phone lit up with notifications pulling me from my reverie. More Instagram posts had appeared from the family gathering. Cousin Brandon sharing a selfie with everyone in the background. Aunt Deborah posting about treasured family traditions. Each one another twist of the knife. Then came a text from my grandmother, "Merry Christmas, darling. I'm home alone watching television. The weather was too bad to go out. Hope you're having a nice day despite the change of plans." The blatant lie from the person I'd trusted most hurt worst of all. I had literally seen her at Samantha's house less than an hour ago, unwrapping a gift in the living room. The realization that even she was willing to perpetuate this deception broke something in me that I hadn't known could still break. A missed call notification appeared from my mother, followed by a voicemail. "Hi, honey. Just checking to make sure you survived the storm okay. Call me tomorrow." The storm that hadn't happened. The concern that wasn't real. The pretense that continued even now. I silenced my phone, and placed it face down on the coffee table. In the quiet darkness of my home, I confronted questions I'd been avoiding for years. Why had I never been enough for them? Was there something fundamentally wrong with me that made me unworthy of the love and attention they lavished on Samantha, or was it simply that I'd never been the child they wanted? I considered my options. I could confront them, lay out the evidence of their deception, and demand an explanation. I could cut them off entirely, removing myself from a family dynamic that had caused me pain for as long as I could remember. Or, I could continue as before, pretending I didn't know, accepting whatever scraps of attention they were willing to give me. None of these options felt right. Confrontation would lead to denials and being painted as the unreasonable one. Cutting them off completely felt extreme, especially given my relationship with my grandmother. But continuing to accept their treatment seemed impossible now that I'd seen the truth so starkly displayed. I dozed off on the couch, surrounded by the unused Christmas gifts I'd purchased, each one carefully selected to show my love and consideration for family members who couldn't even give me the basic respect of honesty. I woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through the windows, and the disorienting feeling that comes from sleeping in an unintended place. For a moment, I didn't remember why I was on the couch instead of in my bed. Then the events of Christmas Day came rushing back. The cancellation, the discovery at Samantha's house, the Instagram posts, the lies. My phone showed multiple missed calls and texts. My mother had called 3 times, my grandmother twice, and even Samantha had sent a message. I scrolled through the notifications with a detached curiosity, as if they belonged to someone else's life. My mother's text read, "Good morning. Hope you had a nice Christmas despite everything. We're having leftovers lunch at Samantha's today around 1. You should come." Samantha's message was similar. "Hey bro, come over for lunch today. Mom's bringing her famous casserole with the leftover turkey." There were generic Merry Christmas texts from my cousins, aunt, and uncle. None of them mentioned the canceled dinner at my house. None acknowledged the lie about the weather. It was as if the previous day's deception hadn't happened at all. Most surreal was the complete absence of any recognition that I might have been hurt or disappointed. There was no apology, no explanation, not even a token acknowledgement that their actions might have affected me negatively. It was this callous disregard, perhaps even more than the original lie, that cemented my growing resolve. I made coffee and was halfway through my first cup when my phone rang again. My mother's name flashed on the screen. After 4 rings, I answered. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Garrett." Finally, "Did you get my messages?" My mother's voice was cheerful, almost excessively so. "We're having lunch at Samantha's today with all the leftovers from yesterday. You should join us." "Leftovers from the dinner you all had at Samantha's after canceling on me because of the weather?" I asked, surprised at how calm I sounded despite the anger and hurt swirling inside me. There was a pause, just a beat too long. "Well, yes. Since everyone was stuck at home anyway, Samantha suggested we do a video call, and then it turned out your father thought the roads near our house were okay, so we went over there. But it was very last minute." Another lie. The Instagram photos had shown a fully prepared dinner with decorations that would have taken hours to arrange. "Mom, why did you all cancel on me?" I asked directly. "The weather was fine. There was barely any snow." "Garrett, it was very icy in our neighborhood," she insisted. "Your father didn't feel safe driving all the way to your house." "But he felt safe, driving to Samantha's, which is farther from your house than mine is." Another pause. "Well, the roads in that direction were better plowed." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I saw you all there. I drove by Samantha's house yesterday. I saw everyone's cars. I saw the Instagram posts about the perfect holiday." The silence that followed was deafening. When my mother finally spoke, her tone had changed completely. "You drove by your sister's house. Were you spying on us, Garrett?" "That's very inappropriate." I almost laughed at the absurdity of her response. That my spying was the issue, not their coordinated deception. "A friend drove by and saw all the cars," I explained, though I didn't owe her this clarification. "He told me because he knew I was expecting you all at my house. Then I checked Instagram and saw the posts." "Well, I don't appreciate being monitored," my mother said, her voice taking on the defensive tone I knew well. and I don't think this is a conversation we should have over the phone. Why don't you come to lunch, and we can discuss it in person? I'd rather talk about it now, I insisted. I spent weeks preparing to host everyone. I spent a lot of money on food and decorations. And instead of just telling me you preferred to go to Samantha's, you all lied about the weather. You're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be, my mother said. Hold on, let me put you on speaker so everyone can say hi. Before I could object, the quality of the call changed, and I could hear background noises. Dishes clinking, multiple conversations, Christmas music playing. It's Garrett, my mother announced to the room. He's upset because we went to Samantha's yesterday. Hey Garrett, my father's voice came through sounding uncomfortable. Merry Christmas, son. Merry Christmas, I replied automatically. Dad, why did you all lie about the weather yesterday? Now Garrett, my Aunt Deborah's voice interjected, nobody lied. We were all genuinely concerned about the conditions. The roads were clear, I stated firmly. I drove around with no problem. The traffic cameras showed no issues. There was barely any accumulation. Well, better safe than sorry, my Uncle Thomas said with forced joviality, especially on Christmas. So, why didn't you just tell me you wanted to have Christmas at Samantha's instead? I asked, directing the question to the room at large. My house is just more convenient for everyone, Samantha chimed in. And I have more space for entertaining. That wasn't true either. My house was actually larger, with a more spacious dining area. But I let it go. It would have been nice if someone had just been honest with me, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, instead of making up a story about dangerous weather that didn't exist. You're being so dramatic about this, my mother replied dismissively. It was just easier for everyone this way. Easier to lie to me than to have an honest conversation, I asked. Now you're just trying to make us feel guilty, Aunt Deborah said. It's Christmas, Garrett. Can't you just let this go? You're making a big deal out of nothing. In the background, I could hear my cousins murmuring in agreement. My grandmother remained silent, which spoke volumes. This isn't nothing to me, I said quietly. This is about respect. Respect. My mother repeated, her voice rising slightly. We've always respected you, Garrett. I don't know why you're turning this into such an issue. This isn't just about yesterday, I said, my words measured and deliberate. This is about a pattern that's gone on my entire life. What pattern? My father asked, genuine confusion in his voice that only served to highlight how blind he was to their behavior. The pattern of treating me differently than Samantha, of excluding me, of dismissing my accomplishments while celebrating hers. That's ridiculous, Samantha interjected. Mom and Dad have always treated us the same. I took a deep breath, organizing my thoughts. This was my chance to articulate what I'd felt for years, but had never fully expressed. I wanted to be clear and specific, not emotional and accusatory, though every part of me was hurting. When Samantha graduated high school, you threw her a party with 50 people. When I graduated, we had dinner at Olive Garden. When Samantha got her first apartment, you helped her move and bought her furniture. When I got mine, you were too busy that weekend. When Samantha got married, you contributed $20,000. When I got promoted, you changed the subject. I continued, my voice gaining strength. Last year, when there was an actual blizzard with 8 inches of snow, you all drove to Samantha's house for Christmas without hesitation. Yesterday, with barely an inch of snow, you claimed it was too dangerous to come to my house, then went to hers anyway and lied about it. There was a long silence on the other end. Then my mother spoke, her voice tight. You've always been too sensitive, Garrett. We've done the best we could for both of you. I'm not being too sensitive, I countered. I'm stating facts. And the fact is, you all decided you didn't want to come to my house, but instead of just telling me that you created an elaborate lie and then got caught, we didn't want to hurt your feelings, my father said weakly. How is lying to me and excluding me from the family Christmas supposed to spare my feelings, I asked. Do you really think finding out through Instagram that everyone was together without me hurts less than if you'd just been honest from the beginning? My house is just more suited for family gatherings, Samantha insisted. It's nothing personal. It is personal, I responded. It's very personal when my entire family decides to lie to me rather than just have a straightforward conversation. You need to understand about family traditions, Uncle Thomas interjected. We've always done Christmas a certain way. The tradition of spending Christmas at Samantha's only started 3 years ago, when she bought her house, I pointed out. Before that, it was at Mom and Dad's Christmas. Mom and Dad's Christmas, Mom and Dad's Christmas. Traditions change, but they changed specifically to exclude me this time. He's right. Brandon's voice came through sounding uncomfortable. We should have just told him the truth. Brandon Aunt Deborah hissed. No, Mom Brandon continued. What we did wasn't cool. We all knew it when we were doing it. I felt a small surge of gratitude toward my cousin for this moment of honesty. Then I heard a familiar voice that had been noticeably absent from the conversation. I wanted to come to your house, Garrett, my grandmother said quietly. I was looking forward to it. Then why didn't you, Grandma? I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. And why did you text me, saying you were home alone when I saw you at Samantha's? She didn't answer, and I heard my mother quickly jump in. Mom doesn't drive in the snow anymore, you know that. And she gets confused sometimes about her texts. My grandmother was 82 but sharp as a tack. The suggestion that she was confused was yet another deflection, another lie. In that moment, I realized with perfect clarity that this pattern wouldn't change. The excuses, the justifications, the minimizing of my feelings, these were deeply ingrained behaviors that my family had no real motivation to address. I had been accepting this treatment for 30 years, making it easy for them to continue. I need some time away from all of you, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. I can't keep pretending that this doesn't hurt me. You're overreacting, my mother said immediately. This is just silly, Garrett. It's not silly to me, I replied. It's my life, and it's been filled with moments like this, being made to feel less important, less valued, less worthy of consideration than Samantha. I'm not blaming her, I added quickly. This isn't about her. It's about choices that the rest of you have made consistently for years. So what, you're just not going to talk to any of us now? Samantha asked, sounding more annoyed than concerned. I'm setting a boundary, I clarified. I'm saying that I deserve to be treated with basic honesty and respect, and until that happens, I need some distance. This is ridiculous, my mother huffed. You're acting like a child. Actually, I'm acting like an adult who values himself enough to not accept disrespectful treatment, I countered. Garrett, honey, my mother's voice softened, shifting to the cajoling tone she used when trying to manage a situation. Why don't you come over for lunch, and we can talk about this face to face? I'll make your favorite dessert. The offer was so tone-deaf, so completely missing the point, that it only reinforced my decision. No thank you, I said firmly. I won't be coming today. And I won't be answering texts or calls for a while. I need time to think about what kind of relationship I want with people who could treat me this way. You can't be serious, my mother said, her voice rising again. It's the holidays. I'm very serious, I replied. And I need to go now. Goodbye. I ended the call before anyone could respond, my hand shaking slightly, but my mind clearer than it had been in years. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without apologizing for my feelings or backing down in the face of their dismissals. It felt both terrifying and liberating. My phone immediately began ringing again, my mother calling back. I silenced it and put it away. There would be more calls, more texts, more attempts to pull me back into the familiar dynamic. But for now, I had said what I needed to say, and I deserved the space to process what had happened and what it meant for my future relationship with my family. I looked around my beautiful home, decorated for a Christmas celebration that never happened, and felt something unexpected amid the pain, a glimmer of pride in myself for finally standing up for my worth. The days following Christmas were difficult but clarifying. As expected, my phone was flooded with messages, some angry, some guilt-inducing, some pleading. My mother cycled through multiple strategies from outrage. I can't believe you'd treat your family this way, to martyrdom. After all we've done for you, to minimization, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. My father sent awkward texts that danced around the issue. Samantha alternated between defensive messages and those suggesting I was mentally unwell for my reaction. My aunt and uncle took my mother's side, completely sending long paragraphs about family loyalty and forgiveness. I read them all, but responded to none. Instead, I focused on processing what had happened and what it meant moving forward. Hazel came over the day after Christmas bringing comfort food and unwavering support. She'd witnessed enough of my family dynamics over our 2 years together to understand the significance of what had occurred. "I'm proud of you," she said, as we sat in my living room. Christmas decorations still up, but now feeling like artifacts from a different time. It takes courage to set boundaries, especially with family. My best friend Jason showed up that evening with a six-pack of my favorite craft beer and an offer I hadn't expected. "My folks want you to come for New Year's," he said casually. "Mom specifically said to tell you that you're family to us, and you always have a place at our table." I was touched by the gesture and the reminder that family could be found in places beyond blood relations. Most surprising was a text from my grandmother, sent from what appeared to be a new number. "Garrett, this is Grandma. I got a new phone, so I could text you privately. I'm so sorry about Christmas. They took my car keys and said the roads were too dangerous for me to drive to your house. When they decided to go to Samantha's instead, I didn't have a choice but to go along. I should have stood up for you more. Please call me when you're ready. I love you." Her message brought tears to my eyes, both from the pain of what had happened and from the realization that she had found a way to reach out honestly despite the pressure she must have been under. After a week of reflection, I made an appointment with Dr. Patricia Collins, a therapist recommended by a coworker who had navigated his own family trauma. In our first session, I poured out the story of Christmas and the lifetime of similar incidents that had preceded it. "What you're describing sounds like a family dynamic, with clear favoritism," she said gently. "It's not uncommon, but that doesn't make it any less painful for the child who receives less positive attention and affirmation." Over the following months, our weekly sessions helped me understand the patterns that had shaped my self-worth and relationships. I learned about family systems theory and how roles become fixed early on. Samantha as the golden child, and me as the scapegoat. I came to understand that these dynamics weren't my fault, and that my feelings of exclusion were valid responses to real experiences, not oversensitivity, as my family had always claimed. During this time, I maintained my distance from most of my family. I eventually reconnected with my grandmother, meeting her for lunch at a cafe halfway between our homes. She apologized again for her part in the Christmas deception and shared stories of how she had tried to advocate for me over the years, often unsuccessfully. "Your mother has always been strong-willed," she explained, sadness in her eyes, "and she identified more with Samantha from the beginning. It wasn't fair to you, and I should have done more." I assured her that I didn't blame her, and was grateful for the love she had shown me throughout my life. Our relationship actually grew stronger through this honest conversation, freed from the pretense that had surrounded our family interactions for so long. At work, I threw myself into new projects, earning recognition from my boss Marcus for my creativity and dedication. When he asked about my holiday, I took a risk and shared a condensed version of what had happened. "Family can be the source of our deepest wounds," he said thoughtfully, "but recognizing toxic patterns is the first step to breaking them." I also developed an unexpected friendship with my coworker Rachel, who revealed her own history of family dysfunction during a team happy hour. "My parents divorced when I was 12, and suddenly I became invisible, while my younger brother got all the attention because he was having a harder time adjusting," she shared. "Even now, in my 30s, family gatherings feel like I'm an afterthought." Our shared experiences created a bond of understanding that developed into a valued friendship. Through Rachel, I met her neighborhood friend Luis, whose perspective as someone who had immigrated to America and created chosen family connections proved invaluable. In my culture, family obligation is everything, he told me over dinner one evening. It took moving thousands of miles away to realize that respect must go both ways, even between parents and children. As spring turned to summer, I felt myself healing. The sharp pain of Christmas had dulled to an occasional ache, replaced by a growing sense of self-worth, independent of my family's validation. Dr. Collins helped me see that my worth wasn't determined by how my family treated me, but by the person I chose to be and the relationships I chose to nurture. My mother's attempts to contact me became less frequent as she realized I was serious about maintaining boundaries. When we did eventually speak 6 months after Christmas, the conversation was different. I was different. I miss having you at family gatherings, she said, her usual manipulative tone noticeably absent. I miss aspects of them too, I replied honestly, but I don't miss feeling excluded or less valued than Samantha. We never meant to make you feel that way, she said, falling back on denial. Intent doesn't change impact, I responded, using a phrase Dr. Collins had taught me, and the impact has been painful for most of my life. We ended the call with no promises or resolutions, but I felt stronger for having expressed my truth without backing down. As the year progressed, I created new traditions with the people who truly valued me. Hazel and I grew closer through the experience our relationship strengthened by navigating difficult emotions together. Jason and his family included me in their celebrations without hesitation. Rachel, Louise, and other friends formed a community that felt more like family than many of my blood relations ever had. When the next Christmas approached, I made a deliberate choice. Instead of seeking inclusion in my family's gathering or hosting an event they might decline, I decided to host a chosen family Christmas for the people who had supported me through the year. To my surprise, my grandmother Eleanor called a week before the holiday. "I'd like to come to your Christmas dinner," she said. "If you're having one, and if I'm welcome." "Of course you're welcome, Grandma," I said, touched by her request. "But what about Mom's dinner?" "I've told Diana I'm spending Christmas with you this year," she said, with a firmness I hadn't heard from her before. "It's my choice to make." On Christmas Day, my home was filled with genuine warmth and laughter. Hazel, Jason, and his girlfriend, Rachel Louise, and my grandmother gathered around my table, enjoying the meal we had prepared together. There were no pretenses, no walking on eggshells, no feeling like an outsider. As I looked around at these people who chose to be in my life, who valued me for who I was, rather than measuring me against someone else's accomplishments, I realized the most important lesson of the past year: family isn't defined by blood, but by love, respect, and mutual care. My grandmother squeezed my hand under the table. "I'm proud of you, Garrett," she whispered, "for creating this beautiful life on your terms." Those words, spoken with genuine love and respect, meant more to me than any validation I had ever sought from my parents. The journey of healing wasn't over. There would always be complicated feelings about my family of origin, hopes for reconciliation balanced against the need for self-protection. But I had learned that I deserved relationships that built me up rather than diminished me, and I had the strength to create boundaries that protected my well-being. Most importantly, I had discovered that family can be chosen, built deliberately with people who see your worth and celebrate your uniqueness rather than trying to mold you into someone else's image. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, know that you're not alone, your feelings are valid, and you deserve to be treated with respect and honesty. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and ultimately for your family, is to stand in your truth and require better treatment. I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? How did you handle it? Please like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in navigating complicated family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you are worthy of genuine love and respect, no matter what family messages you've internalized. The family you build can be even stronger than the one you were born into.